Good morning and good afternoon to everyone joining us from around the world. Greetings from chilly Switzerland. Um, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this critical event organized by the Gender Working Group and Peace and Security Working Group of the Multi-Faith Advisory Council to the UN Interagency Task Force on Religion and Development, as we mark the 25th anniversary of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. For a quarter of a century, the Women, Peace, and Security agenda has provided a framework for ensuring that women are not just present, but are recognized as essential leaders in peace and mediation processes. And yet, despite the clear evidence that women's participation leads to more durable peace, women continue to be underrepresented. Last year, women made up less than 10% of negotiators, 14% of mediators, and just over a quarter of signatories to peace agreements. This is not a reflection of capacity or commitment. It is a reflection of systems that have not yet made full space for women's leadership. And it's precisely for this reason that the UN Secretary General's Common Pledge for Women's Participation calls on all of us, including member states, regional organizations, and civil society, to take concrete steps to ensure women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in all peace processes. Today's event responds directly to that call. Together, we will shine a light on the often overlooked contributions of women and young women of faith mediators. Women of faith mediators are those who are working on various tracks for ceasing violence and finding agreements in order to prevent and mitigate violence. In doing this work, their tools and methods are inspired and motivated by faith, sometimes cooperating within or with faith-based structures or actors. Women of faith mediators draw upon moral authority, deep community trust, and spiritual wisdom to heal divisions and mediate peace. These women are working in some of the world's most fragile contexts where they're formally recognized or taking the role as a faith-oriented insider mediator behind the scenes. They are building bridges where others see only barriers. Yet due to their intersectional identity, they often face double discrimination due to their gender and religiosity, which can cause hesitancy among secular and religious leaders and actors to include them in political mediation processes. But like their secular counterparts, many women of faith mediators do not see themselves exclusively as mediators, but they hold many peace-building jobs in their communities. They often get involved in their mediation work because of needs arising from the local level, and their potential is still not yet fully realized due to the prevailing patriarchal cultures and religious context, which we'll hear more about today. But prior to this event, we were able to collect the experiences of 14 women and young women of faith, in addition to those speaking today, who have successfully promoted mediation efforts in their communities. And I just wanted to highlight some of the key lessons learned from the studies, which we'll be sharing with everyone. Some of the key lessons include the importance of building partnerships, including with male allies, grassroots actors, as well as with religious leaders and institutions. Second, addressing psychosocial needs and economic empowerment are critical to their success. And finally, long-term and flexible resources, both financial and in terms of capacity strengthening, are needed to support women and young women of faith peace mediators. So we'll soon be sharing these case studies so you can read more about their specific stories. In today's event, you will also get to hear directly from women and young women of faith mediators themselves, their experiences, lessons learned, support needs, and the challenges they continue to face. So as we reflect on 25 years of the Women, Peace, and Security agenda, let us also look forward to the next 25 years, committed to ensuring that women and young women of faith are not just part of the story of peace, but at the very center of shaping it. And I don't know about you all, that anniversary moment was quite depressing this year, so I'm taking this moment this week of being able to be with you all at the center of the civil society celebration, and being able to really push this agenda forward and not just let it fall off of using the no good words anymore. I'm not letting it go. So in that spirit, I'm very pleased to introduce our first high-level speaker, Anna Huvila, who is the Minister Counselor and Head of Unit for Peace and Security for the Permanent Mission of Finland to the UN in New York. And Finland also is a co-chair of the Group of Friends on Mediation. So very pleased to welcome Anna.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for this kind invitations to speak at this event. The topic and being here with you in the community of faith-based peace mediators is of utmost importance to Finland. Finland has been supporting the network of religious and traditional peacemakers since its establishment, 2013, and the network is one of our key partners at the Center for Peace Mediation within the ministry. In the next few minutes, I wish to address the importance of working together, listen and learn from each other, which I assume this meeting will also be, and benefit from the complementarity that we, different actors in peace mediation spaces, bring to the field. Dear friends, this month we celebrate the 25th anniversary of the groundbreaking Security Council Resolution 1325. This Women, Peace and Security agenda, born from necessity, provides still a robust net framework to work towards inclusivity of women in peace processes. And in a couple of weeks, we will celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Youth, Peace and Security Resolution. This resolution is a great example of active participation of youth. Already the initiative for this resolution came from Finnish youth, and they presented it directly to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon when he visited Finland in 2011. We need to defend these commitments and ensure their implementation in practice, and we need to do this together. And when I say together, I mean both the community here in the UN in New York, the member states, but also the different actors striving for the same objectives: sustainable peace and global stability. We all have a role to play, whether officially or informally, and we have different channels of influence, be they in the government, municipality, or at the grassroots level. Essential to achieving results is having complementarity and cooperation amongst different actors. One important aspect of cooperation is working together with actors who easily may be seen as opposing wider inclusion or acting as gatekeepers for participation. This behavior may be reasoned with societal traditional religious norms, but that should not stop us. Engaging in dialogue with such actors and identifying each other's specific roles and strengths helps us to overcome such boundaries. Friends, while the peace mediation landscape is changing, we need to find new, innovative solutions to ensure women and youth are included in all efforts to advance peace, ranging from early ceasefire negotiations to post-conflict reconstruction and recovery. Special focus should be put into local processes and meaningful participation. First, local women actors have an incremental role in ensuring women's inclusion in conflict-sensitive manner. While increasing participation at the formal level remains an important goal, the role women play in informal processes cannot be overlooked. I wish to hear from you today. How can we identify ways to make this work more visible, recognized, and then supported? Second, we must see participation of youth as a crucial element of peace and security work. Their active engagement is vital to any society. Finland wants to work not only for the youth, but with the youth in all its diversity. In order to do so, we need to bring youth to the spaces where peace is discussed, and we need to hear what they have to say. For example, Finland and South Africa are hosting a youth peace mediation mentoring program for 15 youth actors across the globe. The program provides the participants exchanges with key peace mediation actors for mutual experience sharing. Finally, dear friends, Finland will keep WPS and YPS agendas at the forefront of our work, but we still cannot be successful without your experiences and knowledge. We need to continue to work together so that we can better ensure that your messages, that our messaging here will at the UN will support your work, that your messages are being heard also in, let's say, in the governmental level, multilateral sphere. And it is also important for us to identify the main obstacles and hindrances that you face in your work and discuss how we could overcome them. I hope through this discussion, we can put forth some suggestions on how we could take our joint efforts forward. I wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And I know that whether it be supporting women of faith and youth of faith, Finland has been at the heart of the inclusivity of this movement. There are actually representatives here in the Religion and Mediation course in Switzerland. So Finland always walks the talk. So very appreciative of your time here today. So I will now move to our great panel that we have here for you today with so much wisdom and experience to share. And as we do that, I want to introduce our moderator for today's event, Christina Shaheen, who is part of the standby team within the UN Mediation Support Unit of UNDPPA. Christina has an amazing background looking at women, peace, and security, and has, I think, tackled some of the hardest mediation conflicts I see in her resume, including advising on Afghanistan, Israel, Palestine, Sudan, and Syria. So she's not afraid to tackle the hard crises, I think. So over to you, Christina.
Thanks so much, Jessica, and to the Multi-Faith Advisory Council for inviting me to moderate this really important event to amplify the critical and often unrecognized contributions that women and young women faith-based mediators bring to the peace mediation processes. And we hope after this conversation, we will have concrete ideas on how to really amplify and make visible, as the minister said, the important work of young women faith mediators and women faith mediators. We have an incredible lineup of peace builders on this panel and as participants in this event, but to maximize our limited time together, I will only introduce their names and titles, but I encourage you to check the chat because we will post a link to their full biographies and you can learn more about their extraordinary work. On this panel, we have Tatiana Kalenchenko, who is a dialogue facilitator and mediator at the Institute for Peace and Common Ground, Aman Hamad, who is a meal officer at YWCA Palestine, Karen Dassa, who is the CEO of Hope's Advocate Africa, Nang Ra, who is a facilitator and mediator of the Southeast Asian Women Peace Mediators, and Jenny Neme, who is the Deputy Special Envoy in Colombia for the peace process at the World Council of Churches, ACT Alliance. And we will have 2 rounds of questions in this plenary before we move into breakout rooms. And given our limited time, we've asked the panelists to limit her intervention to only 3 to 4 minutes, which is really not doing justice to her wisdom and insights, but we want to get through 2 rounds of questions. So I'd like to begin with Tatiana with the first question. Tatiana, as women and young women faith-based mediators, what best practices or success stories can you share based on your experience and the challenges that you currently face in your context?
Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you, everyone. And good afternoon for us and good morning for you in different parts of our planet. That's my honor and my pleasure to join the panel. And also, just to mention, unfortunately, I cannot stay till the end because we've got ACT Alliance meeting offline in Ukraine, so it's just coincides somehow. And briefly to explain, I'm not a part of Institute for Peace and Common Ground. I'm leading my own organization called Dialogue in Action. And I would say that's part of best practices I would happy to share. Because when we started and when the war started in 2014 in Ukraine, it was not common to get a faith-based women mediator in the group, leading the man-only pastor priest group, leading through all the tough questions. And through more than 10 years of practice, right now we've got a branch of women mediators from different faith backgrounds, culture backgrounds. It can be only not faith-based mediator leading the group of priests, pastors, imams together. And much more we developed, and together with our colleagues from Northern Ireland context, Balkans, we developed several practices how to ask tough questions and how to talk about taboo topics. And I would say that my message today is that peace is possible and peace building is possible even during the times of active war phase. And it's possible to discuss the question of women presence at church. It's possible to discuss mobilization, which is more discrimination against men and women today in Ukraine. Also to discuss all the theological issues and dilemmas we've got about peace and war, and also connected to other conflicts and war we've got on our planet. And that's a crucial change, that making those small steps, and also in cooperation with our international partners, it's possible to promote local ownership. It's possible to get both women, men, young mediators, because we also got teenagers who are mediating their own group, who design their own trainings. Unfortunately, it's not so easy right now to travel, and because of safety issues, still we got conference rooms in shelters, and we continue our work offline as soon as we see it as priority. And we don't want to stop our peace building work, our peace education, even when it's active shelling, and when we entering parts of blackouts and absence of electricity. You can adjust and you can adapt to those circumstances which you cannot imagine before. And as you can hear from my voice, it's always different stuff which is coming because of cold and winter. And also I would say that my message on how we can empower women's voice, and especially faith-based mediators, is to count and listen to them and hear them, especially on the top level. Take multi-track approach and to take faith-based actors into account in all the processes, rather on the first track, on the third track on the ground, but to count on their name and experience and count on local expertise, because those people who are actually living in the context, who are capable to facilitate together with international colleagues, they know how it's to be sensitive and conflict sensitive in a good way. And sometimes, for example, if we discuss gender issues, which is also possible in interreligious group, you need to get a proper language and not just to take a superficial, artificial concept that we just need women in negotiations, for example, about ceasefire, but we get this need of system thinking and system change and what we would like to get as a result. It's not like only some of us of women of Ukraine present on negotiations. No, it's more about thinking, imagining future peace, and imagining what kind of request we would like to send to different tracks of diplomacy. So I would say that it's still possible. We're doing it, and we hope to continue with you, because I believe that only in cooperation and solidarity with each other, when we take into account each other perspective, each other context, and such different aspects of it, and this richness of diversity, it's possible to make a big global change together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tatiana. And you already have shared so many insights in terms of the multi-track approach, localized approach, the importance of language, being innovative and flexible despite the most dire situation that you're working in. And I love how you ended calling us to think through imagining how it can still be possible despite hopeless situations. So I feel inspired. Thank you. And I note that at some point you have to be off for your next meeting. I'd like to give the floor to Aman. on this question. As women and young women faith-based mediators, what best practices or success stories can you share based on your experience and the challenges you have faced? Aman Hamad?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased and honored to be with you today to join this platform to highlight the critical role of women and young women faith mediators in different contexts of the world. But before I begin with this, I would like to explain a little bit and very shortly the background and context in Palestine, which will later clarify my talking points, the importance of faith mediation and the engagement of Palestinian women of faith who showed courage through stepping into roles including mediating disputes, creating safe spaces, and pressing governments and institutions to uphold commitments under UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and turning the resolution from principle into practice. Since 2023, Palestine has been witnessing escalating political aggression in Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem. The deteriorated livelihoods of Palestinians manifested in mobility restrictions, including unpredictable closures, checkpoints, and settler attacks, which also have implications on the difficulty to access religious places of worship, including mosques and churches in Jerusalem. Also, a new risk emerged, which is the persecution and imprisonment of Palestinians by the Israeli occupation as a result of freedom of expression or even expression of empathy towards victims, not to mention the daily invasions of Israeli occupation forces to Palestinian territories, demolishing houses and buildings. And sadly, the ongoing genocide on Gaza for 2 years, resulting in demolishing the entire infrastructure, displacement of Palestinians, and the loss of 70,000 lives as a result of the bombardment and starvation due to not allowing humanitarian aids to access Gaza. All of those factors contribute to increased violence, especially towards women and young women, and highly impacted our advocacy efforts aiming at combating GBV in Palestine and hindered the YWCA of Palestine's interventions and programs, including the Young Women for Awareness, Agency, Accountability, and Advocacy YW4A program. To address these challenges, the YWCA of Palestine with partner organizations and young women developed mitigation measures and adapted plans, approaches, and tools to ensure the continuity and effectiveness of its interventions under the program. Given this very complicated context, I'd like to present some of the best practices and success stories under the program on how to engage women and young women as faith mediators in the context of Palestine. One of the tools developed under the program was a research paper titled The Effects of Social Movements on the Endorsement of the Family Protection Bill. This research dives into the arguments of the opposing movements to the endorsement of the Family Protection Draft Law and presenting counter-arguments using progressive interpretation of religious texts. This research paper was disseminated and familiarized to Palestinian women rights organizations, national coalitions, and young women to lead more effective and impactful advocacy interventions, including awareness sessions and community initiatives, in which young women act as faith mediators in their communities, utilizing the shared religious values and scripture to bridge divides and use religious dialogue to challenge harmful norms and encourage peaceful conversation on issues like GBV and family law. The research was also shared with the Ministry of Awqaf for revision and dissemination to local preachers to promote and influence community members to shift their perspectives and attitudes towards family protection bill. This step also aligns with the development of the social behavioral change communication strategy for the advocacy campaigns adopted under the program. This strategy aims at stakeholders' analysis to identify communication plans and develop messages, including Quran and biblical texts, to promote the religious shared values and influence social norms change to achieve advocacy campaigns' objectives. Another example was that of our Palestinian faith partners under the program, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jordan and the Holy Land. They established Al-Hakimat Interfaith Council. The council brings Christians and Muslim women together with judicial actors to keep dialogue on discriminatory family laws alive. It reflects real collaboration between women of different faiths and institutions, which gives a clear example of interfaith mediation connecting faith to legal reform. The church also adopted gender policies and began ordaining women clergy. For instance, Sally Azar is the first female Palestinian pastor ordained in 2023. This transformation is very significant as it is happening within the structures of the faith institutions and reflects that the change in the heart can drive and influence community peace and justice. We also maintain monthly safe spaces in Palestine. These spaces have provided emotional reprieve and have been structured with psychological first aid as a first response to stress and trauma. Young women faith mediators trained in psychological first aid can immediately support peers, stabilize the stress, and when needed, activate GBV referral pathways. This system has safeguarded young women when violence surged and stigma silenced survivors. Safe spaces became anchors of resilience, offering trauma mitigation, leadership, agency, and collective advocacy. Young women were able to work together in those safe spaces to design community initiatives which align with national priorities for combating GBV. These experiences validate that women of faith mediators are shaping scripture into tools against GBV, transforming faith institutions and pressing laws and policies forward. By connecting community dialogue to national decision-making, they make UN Security Council Resolution 1325 a reality, preventing SGBV, protecting survivors, and ensuring that women influence the laws and processes addressing these crimes. Through the YW4A initiative, investing in women of faith mediators means investing in structural change in law, institutions, and communities that can sustain peace even in the most fragile settings, such as in Palestine, and emphasize how local faith-led mediation contributes to a global movement for peace and gender justice. Thank you. Over to you.
Oh, thank you, Aman, and thank you for shedding light on Palestinian women living under occupation, which is often neglected in the WPS framework and agenda, and the spectrum of work that you're doing on the ground, the importance of research and analysis, and the importance of a communication strategy, because there's so much misinformation and manipulation of information, your interfaith collaboration, importantly, how you're creating safe spaces on the ground and the need for psychological first aid. I think that that's one of the recommendations also that came out from the study that Jessica alluded to. So thank you for that. And I'd like to now move on to our next panelist, Karen Dassa, on the same question about best practices and success stories that you can share based on your experiences and the challenges that you currently face.
Thank you so much, Christina. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of these conversation today. And I'll basically be sharing some of the real lived experiences and projects and activities carried out to support women of faith, especially young women in Cameroon. And just to highlight that, presently Cameroon is facing a post-election crisis. And I'm sure it's all over the news. And in as much as we are monitoring and looking at how this will turn out, we are just hopeful that the different political parties and those very directly involved will be able to come to a consensus so that we can have peace, because we're already living in a very fragile context. So Hope Advocates Africa is a young women-led organization, and our work focuses on young people and women particularly. And our work spans within the grassroots and local communities in Cameroon, where we believe that the needs of women who are bearing the brunt of armed conflict and facing the guns have their contributions are very relevant with regards to peace building and as well as their protection. Through our organization and through the support of Women's Alliance for Security Leadership, which we are a member. We've been able to do localization workshops on the She Builds Peace campaign and focusing on the 4 framework, which has to do with ensuring the security of women peace builders, opportunities, resourcing, and calling on states to fulfill their obligation with regards to the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And while we are celebrating 25 years of the landmark document on women, peace and security, and to me, that is the Bible of women peace builders. And aside being a woman, I'm a young woman. And so my work also focuses within the intersection of both declarations, the resolutions, the United Nations Security Council Resolution on Youth Peace and Security and Women Peace and Security alike. And so it is important to note that 25 years later, we still have communities with women who are doing work who don't even know of the existence of this resolution. And so every single day, every single year, after 5 years, we're doing UN 1325 plus 20 plus 25. And yet we still have women all in communities, in countries who don't even know about this resolution and how it impacts them and it affects their work as women peace builders. I think for us, that is a landmark document through which we're able to advocate for women's effective participation in peace processes at different levels. And so it is our duty as civil society to go into communities and ensure that we don't only hang around the auditorium of the UN and push for, oh, we were celebrating 25 years. But after these meetings, going back into our communities and ensuring that we're able to localize this resolution, it is what is for us is important. And so we've been able to organize several localization workshops, and sometimes in pidgin language, a language that the people will better understand, and where we're able to tell them about the existence of this document and how relevant it is for them to ensure their inclusion at different levels of peace building processes in their communities. Sorry, just give me a second. A technical light issue. Okay. Sorry, I had to switch because of the battery. I'm actually in a meeting in Nairobi, so I had to move to my room to attend this meeting. So we've done a lot of localization workshops around localizing the Women Peace and Security Agenda 1325 and ensuring that we are placing power, which is access to knowledge, information, in the hands of those who matter, in the hands of those who are bearing the brunt of armed conflict, who are in their communities every day. They don't live the life they want to live, whose children are being kidnapped, who are being raped, and ensuring that they don't just be on the agenda, but they make sure that they are part of the conversations. We've also done a lot of program around trauma healing. You know, women of faith mediators face, aside other things, physical security issues, because working in grassroots communities, accessing communities where you have to meet separatist armed groups and maybe regular military as well, sometimes it's so, it impacts your mental health. Sometimes you go into communities and hear stories that really touches you to the core. And sometimes it also traumatizes you. And I always ask this question: who takes care of those taking care of others? Who takes care of the mental health of peace builders? Who takes care of our mental health, of our sanity? Who ensures that we are fine? Every day we are at the forefront providing service. We hear this has happened this way. We want to do this activity in this area. But most of the time, we don't have that circle of people who say, hey, are you okay? Are you coping? Do you need to take a break? And I think it is so very important when we talk about the Women, Peace and Security Agenda without mentioning and highlighting the importance and relevance of focusing on the mental health of the communities we serve and also those providing the service. We've also done so many activities with youth, localizing, because we do the Youth Peace and Security and Women Peace and Security Agenda alike, ensuring that we are not only seen as the world sees us, as our leader sees us, as the troublemakers, but ensuring that they understand the role that women, young women like myself, play in building peace. After mentioning like quite a lot of like the activities, we also ensure that these women have access to resources. I would have loved to share more about a program we're part of, which is the She Wins project, which was funded by the US government and Search for Common Ground. And in Cameroon, our organization was the local partner, and we worked with 17 local organizations. That project focused on ensuring access to resources to local organizations and grassroots organizations that have never received grants or funding in any form or shape. And so we worked with them to build their capacity, and we're happy that they received grants. And because of the grants that they receive, they are receiving grants from other donors. The idea is, who trusts this grassroots organization from the beginning? Nobody wants to give money if you don't have 15 years experience, you don't have these financial records and everything. And so there's always a need for somebody to be the first. And so we're happy that we did that. And these 20 organizations received grants of $10,000, and they did amazing work in their communities. Aside all that said, we still have a lot of issues. And first of all, security issues. Either you are a target, you are kidnapped for ransom, or you are in prison. And that is the reality of women of faith mediators, especially the young ones. Aside that, sexualization of women of faith mediators. As you're young, you're working in grassroots communities, people look at you not like the amazing work you're doing, but how you're built and how they can take advantage of you. And so those issues are recurrent. And I think this is an open space for us to discuss and share more light on some of the realities of these young women and faith mediators. And the aspect of access to funding, like I earlier mentioned, donors with the funding cuts and everything, I think 2025 is ridiculously because organizations are crying everywhere. We all have complaints. Our funding have been cut, and probably human peace and security is not like the priority. And so I think that for me, those two would be like the highlight of the challenges that young women faith mediators face in implementing the women peace and security agenda. Thank you very much.
Karen, thank you so much. And you're sharing so many pearls of wisdom on the importance of localization and doing awareness raising from the ground up, and really putting the power in the hands of those on the front lines, both in terms of the brunt of conflict, but also those peacemakers on the ground, and the need for their mental health support for their protection and security, and of course, support for financing and resourcing. So thank you for all of that. I'd like to now pass the floor to Nengra to answer the same question on best practices, success stories, as well as challenges you're facing.
Peace be with you, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thankful to the co-host, Multi-Faith Advisory Council and members of the Interagency Task Force on Religion and Development for inviting me to this critical and timely webinar. Talking about my experience as a facilitator, mediator, I want to briefly talk about the backdrops of multi-ethnic Myanmar's protracted conflict started since its independence in 1948. So root causes such as militarism, military dictatorship, historical injustice, legitimate grievances, manipulation of agreements, etc., are yet to be addressed by the governance. So as we all know, conflicts tend to be cyclical in nature until the root causes are well addressed. So without even not addressing the root causes, but the structural violence and cultural violence became worsened and deepened. So the structural violence and cultural violence are connected. When we say cultural violence, it's a patriarchal culture. So cultural violence legitimizes the structural violence, such as laws, policies, which institutionalize the inequality. In this kind of time, the conflict-related sexual violence have been going on and getting worse after the coup 2025. So until until 2021, the last coup, Myanmar's protracted conflict is mainly between the military or government and non-Burma ethnic groups. So almost 5 years after the coup, which is 2021, and now, even in the Burma heartland, Burma people are fighting against the military to remove the military from the politics once and for all, together with the ethnic resistance organizations and the public. So for today's topic, I'd like to go back to a time when there was a peace table. So in Myanmar, there was a time in 2013, which is 12 years ago, there was a nationwide ceasefire agreement negotiation process, which was eventually signed in October 2015. So now this agreement is not really working anymore because of the coup, but still there, which is very much comprehensive agreement in Myanmar's history. And another experience is the implementation of that NCA and the Union Peace Conference were convened between 2016 and 2020. So the like good practice, or even in a extremely limited room to work, there were like a practice that I would like to highlight. So the dialogue or the NCA negotiation, there was no mediator, but it's kind of a group direct negotiation, which is facilitated by joint facilitators. So I was one of them. So like from the government side or military side, there are like 2-3 facilitators they assign, and from the ethnic armed organization side, there are 2 facilitators, myself and another women leader. So just one example of as a good practice, and why, I also would like to always proud of it, and want to encourage the young women as well. So that's why I take this as a success, although the implementation is stopped right now because of the coup. So in this particular facilitation room, so that was the for the thematic security thematic dialogue. So 25% each from government, political parties, and members of parliament, military, and ethnic armed organizations. So altogether, 125 participants in a big room. So the facilitation team was also joined, but here only 4%. So one is a director level from the government, and 1% from political parties, and 1% from military is a full colonel in rank, and ethnic armed organization sent me to be their representative to become facilitator. So inside this room, when the facilitation, as a group facilitation, we have to prepare, right? So then when we prepared, they asked me to be the lead of the facilitation. Yeah. So why? I'm the only woman. The rest are 3 people are men, and they are quite, according to their rank and their position, they are quite high people. And I have no rank or position. I'm just a civil society leader in an organization. Why? They trust me. They trusted me to lead the facilitation because of the capacity I have. They know that I have, and the ability to bringing in spirituality in working with these relatively tough issues and deadlock. So what I'm trying to say here is, it is, at that time, I have experience of 20 years. So these trust and capacity, which bring on board trust, cannot be built very easily. We have to put effort. So that will come back with the recommendation again. Another thing is, we women group able to find formed an Alliance for Gender Inclusion in Peace Process. It was organized in 2024 to really assist or support and to include the gender, to engender the NCA, Nationwide Ceasefire Agreement. And so myself is my organization, the organization I work with is also part of this alliance. So we were like five big networks. Our organization, like 2 peace building organizations, 3 women-led and women rights organizations. So in one women rights organization, there are faith-based organizations on there, but I don't want to name them because I don't want to harm them because they are still actively working on the ground, giving trainings and giving all kinds of services, you name it. So because of this alliance, we were able to put the clause regarding the women's participation at the decision-making level and then the whole process, like 30%, things like that. And it eventually, after this signing of 2015, there were like 4 years of a union peace conference. And then, yeah, although it didn't reach to 30%, there were like 15 to 20% women were included in each thematic session. We have 5 thematic sessions. And so that was like, it's not a perfect success, but we did it, we tried it, and we succeeded it. So that gendered clause is also inside the NCA. So another one is the interfaith youth program. So in my organization that I worked for 20 years, until the coup 2021. So we have this interfaith youth program. We always trust in a country like where the cultural violence exists. It's very hard to work with the older people. So it's too much. They were too much. How can I say, in the old frame, that although they know it, they cannot walk out of it. They cannot walk outside that frame. So we always go back to the youth, trusted the youth. So in our youth faith interfaith program, there are like Buddhists, Christian, Muslims, and Hindus. And whenever we walk in a majority Christian area, region, then we also invite the youth pastors from Christian faiths. And also, I don't know how to call them, is the young religious leaders from the Muslim as well. So in the Buddhist, it's really hard to find a young person who have actively involved in the religious hierarchy. So yeah, anyway, what we have been doing is, as you all know, it's kind of, we have unseen compartment, among these across the village, across this religion. So let them understand and recognize the core values of different faiths. And we did that kind of visiting Buddhist temples, churches, mosques, and kind of exchange visit. And then they respond together the natural disasters. So under the Interfaith Youth Program. So what we see is, because of that, we did it, and then we have been doing it until around now. It's continuing, and other organizations have been also working on the interfaith work. These works are really, we can see the impact when the coup happened. The military tried to manipulate using the religion card to make it worse, to make the violent wars, but it didn't happen because youth already know, religion is not to fight, but to take peace. Yeah, thank you.
I'm so sorry. Yes, and I'm so sorry to intervene, because I could sit and listen to this such insightful lived experience for hours. And I think what you're sharing, being the only lead facilitator with these men from military backgrounds, is stunning. and the fact that you also are bridging the intergenerational divide in order to overcome some of the older mindsets that might be, intractable. What you've shared about building trust over time and credibility is really key. And I hope we can return to that also in the breakout rooms. So thank you for that. And I'd like to turn to our last panelist on this round, Jenny Nemme, who will be speaking through interpretation. Or for those who don't speak Spanish, you can have the ability to hear her in English by clicking on the bottom of Zoom. Jenny, on the same question, as women and young women, faith-based mediators, what are some best practices and challenges that you're facing in your current context? Over to you.
Muy buenos días para todas. Y gracias, Cristina. Y pues una solidaridad también, mi respeto por las personas que me antecedieron en esta conversación. Me siento muy identificada con sus contextos, pero también con muchas de sus experiencias que han compartido en esta mañana. Gracias también por esta invitación. Ya de entrada quiero decir que este es una gran oportunidad para que entre todas aprendamos y podamos fortalecer nuestras propias capacidades en estos temas relacionados con la construcción de la paz. Quisiera plantearles unos 3 elementos de contexto que me parece importante para situar la experiencia. En Colombia tenemos una realidad histórica de ser profundamente religiosos. Colombia, al igual que América Latina, somos profundamente religiosos, con un trasfondo cristiano y con una presencia de la Iglesia Católica enorme. Hay un poder, una presencia y una incidencia de la Iglesia Católica en todos los ámbitos de la vida de nuestro país. Y eso para mí es importante resaltarlo porque para las otras confesiones religiosas, inclusive para el sector cristiano no católico, ha sido muy difícil lograr posiciones en lo público. Entonces ese sería un primer elemento de contexto. El segundo es que Colombia tiene una larga historia de violencia y conflicto armado, donde se han experimentado salidas militares y también salidas negociadas. Y sobre este último tema de las salidas negociadas, ha habido en las últimas décadas una movilización de la sociedad civil importante, abogando porque las salidas negociadas sean las que prevalezcan para buscar salidas al conflicto armado. Y en esa sociedad civil también hemos estado las iglesias, las católicas, las no católicas y también muchos otros sectores religiosos. Y un tercer elemento de contexto que quiero decir es que en el último gobierno nacional que inició en el año 2022, iglesias cristianas no católicas, algunas que hacen parte de una confluencia que se llama DIPAS, Diálogo Intereclesial por la Paz, incidieron con este gobierno para tener en cuenta a este sector no católico en su política de paz. Este gobierno definió una política de paz que habilitó nuevos procesos de diálogos de paz con distintos actores armados. Generalmente la Iglesia Católica es quien ha tenido un papel importante en estos diálogos de paz, pero ahora se estaba pidiendo un lugar para las iglesias no católicas. Así es que ya empiezo a contar la experiencia. Es que el diálogo intereclesial por la paz anima a que el Consejo Mundial de Iglesias sea el que ejerza un rol en estos diálogos de paz y en consecuencia el gobierno colombiano invita al Consejo Mundial de Iglesias a participar en un rol específico de acompañante acompañante de un diálogo de paz entre actores armados y el gobierno colombiano significa ser testigo, estar presente, ayudar a disminuir las tensiones que surjan en los diálogos de paz, y es un rol demasiado específico. Así que el Consejo Mundial de Iglesias responde positivamente a esta invitación que hace el gobierno, y el Consejo Mundial de Iglesias decide ir de la mano con las iglesias locales, con el DIPAS y con iglesias locales para ejercer su rol un poco en esta visión multinivel de construcción de paz que lo veríamos de una manera muy específica en este rol. El Consejo Mundial de Iglesias nombra un equipo donde hacen parte hermanos hombres bastante reconocidos en varias partes del mundo. Y aquí en Colombia, algunos desde las iglesias nos preguntamos, ¿y dónde están las mujeres? Hay una representación masculina importante, la reconocemos, pero también en aras, además conocedores de la resolución 1325 y en muchos de los espacios eclesiales abogando por la participación de las mujeres. Finalmente, en un cambio que hubo de esta delegación del Consejo Mundial de Iglesias, se me pide a mí ejercer este rol en representación del Consejo Mundial de Iglesias a finales del año pasado, y todavía estoy ejerciendo este rol. Así que tenemos esta decisión como algo muy importante de representar al Consejo Mundial de Iglesias y caminar también con hermanas de las iglesias colombianas, pastoras y lideresas en varios roles que hemos venido desarrollando. Por un lado, como digo, hacer este rol de testigo y presencia y acompañamiento al diálogo de paz con uno de los actores armados y el gobierno, que también ha incluido un rol de facilitación de diálogos. Estos diálogos son bilaterales, no hay mediación formal, pero sí necesitan de una moderación, de una facilitación. Y tal vez en los últimos 3 meses he tenido la oportunidad de ejercer este rol de facilitación. También tenemos otras instancias de participación en este diálogo de paz, que es la participación en un mecanismo de verificación, monitoreo y seguimiento al cese al fuego, que en un momento fue pactado por las partes, justamente por buscar alivios humanitarios. Se pactó un cese al fuego, entonces allí también tuvimos presencia de hermanas, de pastoras, en este mecanismo de supervisión del cese al fuego. Y sin duda no dejamos de hacer lo que nos corresponde como iglesias, y es el acompañamiento continuo a la población civil y especialmente a comunidades de fe que están en zonas de conflicto armado, en zonas de operación del actor armado que participa en este diálogo de paz, y que muy lamentablemente en abril de este año se rompió el cese al fuego y continúan las confrontaciones entre grupos armados, dejando un saldo importante de sufrimiento a la población civil, de crisis humanitaria, y ahí es donde creemos que es importante apoyar también como comunidades religiosas, pero también desde esta perspectiva de género en estas zonas del país. Yo resumiría ahí nuestro rol, nuestra experiencia, y pues es un mandato que tenemos hasta agosto del año entrante. Entonces, tenemos todavía un desafío de unos meses más de continuar en estos escenarios que estoy compartiendo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Jenny. I think that what you're sharing is so important in terms of the role of the World Council of Churches that stepped up to the plate when the new government made a new inclusive approach to including churches, both Catholic and non-Catholic churches together, and the importance of local level partnerships with, as you mentioned, the multi-level cooperation that you helped to spearhead in your role, and the important role that the World Council of Churches is playing in monitoring and observing ceasefire arrangements, which, unfortunately, like you said, have hit many setbacks. But I think that it's an entrusted role that the church is playing. So thank you for sharing that. Now we're going to go to the second round. We're going to make it a speed round because of limited time. So we decided that for the next question, we want the response to be almost in the form of a tweet, or for old people like me, just a very short recommendation. So in the form of a tweet or a brief recommendation, what is one thing the Multi-Faith Advisory Council and the international community can do to support the leadership and participation of women and young women faith-based mediators in peace processes? And I'd like to begin with Nangra, because I believe that you have to go to another meeting, and then maybe to Tatiana, who I hope is still with us. But Nangra, would you like to begin, if you're still with us, on this one recommendation for the Multi-Faith Advisory Council and the international community? Over to you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. The most important thing, it's one thing, it's like continue. We appreciate all the support to the women and the young women. So please continue and enhance supporting the trainings on negotiation, mediation, and dialogue facilitation. And to understand the structure and culture of violence in the protracted conflicts, so that, they can be just not the skills, but also comprehensive knowledge of the nature of this such protracted conflict. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us. Tatiana, are you still with us? I think Tatiana had to go to another meeting. But I'd like to give the floor to Aman Hamad. Do you have a recommendation you can share with us?
Yes, hi again. I'm aware we're a little bit behind schedule, so I will make it very brief, I promise. As we've seen through the examples shared, the value of engaging young women and faith mediators in influencing social norms change and legal reform, and the importance of analysis-based interventions were really essential in driving change and creating peace in communities. Therefore, I want to stress the importance of supporting youth initiatives where young women faith mediators are leaders who drive change in their communities, and advocating for changing harmful social norms. This can be supported through engaging in international networks and share resource opportunities, including capacity building, such as digital media advocacy training, moderating effective dialogues with decision makers, and supporting community initiatives, which then can contribute to long-term goals for combating GBV. Also, it is very important to promote for more engagement of women and young women as faith and peace mediators in long-term peace-building processes, especially in civil peace in local communities under fragile contexts. This can be materialized through supporting the dissemination of joint statements by youth and women rights organizations. This is to amplify their voices in international platforms through virtual and physical participation. In addition to supporting youth engagement in international dialogues and roundtable discussions, those opportunities can contribute to more learning and creating platforms for exchanging experiences and best practices among women faith mediators globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you very much for that. Now to Karen Dessa, for if you had one recommendation for the Multi-Faith Advisory Council and international community. Over to you.
Thank you, Christina. I think my recommendation is very short and simple. I think the council should prioritize localization so that in the next 5 years, when we will be celebrating the United Nations Security Council Resolution 3025 plus 30, we will record a 0% of women who are ignorant of the existence of this resolution.
Love that. Okay, great. And Jenny Neme, one recommendation for the advisory council and also for the international community.
Gracias. Primero me sumo a las recomendaciones anteriores. No las voy a repetir. Pero quisiera hacer énfasis en dos cosas. Uno es cómo promover garantías de protección y seguridad para mujeres que estamos en un rol tan específico, con algún tipo de intervención, de acción en contextos de conflicto armado, en contextos de mediación de conflictos. Yo creo que los niveles de riesgo están aumentando y los niveles de estigmatización están aumentando cuando a nivel global se están escuchando voces de guerra y donde se está rechazando el componente de género, la participación de las mujeres, de la población diversa en este tipo de escenarios. Así que creo que es un tema que necesitamos más que discutirlo, es establecer medidas de protección y seguridad para quienes estamos en estos roles. Y lo segundo es que creo que debe haber una agenda muy intencionada con iglesias locales para animar y promover y proteger el rol que estamos ejerciendo como mujeres en estos escenarios de mediación de conflictos.
Thank you, Jenny. Gracias. I think what you just said is very concrete, and hopefully it can be carried on into the working groups in terms of protection issues, but also this intentional agenda that you mentioned. So we're now going to broaden the conversation by going into breakout rooms and to delve into two specific questions because there's so much expertise in this event right now. We want to hear from more of you. The breakout rooms will be facilitated by another fantastic lineup of peace builders. I will only introduce them by name and title again, but I encourage you to look up their full bios to read about their very rich experience. Kaltumi Abdulaziz is the founder and executive director of Ladies Empowerment Goals and Support Initiative. Despina Namwembe is the regional coordinator for Africa Great Lakes of the United Religious Initiatives. Mosarat Kadim is the co-founder of Pamam Alumni Trust in Pakistan. Aisha Aminu Marafa is the executive director of We Girls Development Foundation. And each of these working groups will be supported by a note taker from the organizing team of this event. And there will be maybe 20 minutes or so to go into two questions, which we will make sure to post in the chat. But the two questions are, how has your organization or initiative been supporting women and young women faith-based mediators? What needs do they currently have? And second, building on the UN Secretary General's call for common pledges for advancing women's participation in peace processes, what pledge can you and/or your organization make to support the leadership and participation of women and young women faith-based mediators in peace processes? So again, the questions will be posted. You have fantastic facilitators, and thank you for staying with us because we really want to come out of this meeting with some concrete recommendations. I hope everyone had constructive conversations. I know I did with the wonderful peace builders in my breakout group. And so for a few minutes, we're going to hear back from each group by facilitator. And hopefully we can keep the sum up to about three or 4 minutes so we can make sure we have time for closing by our colleague, Deborah. So for the first group, Kaltumi Abdulaziz, would you like to report back on some of the key points that your group raised on these questions?
Thank you so much, Christina. Lucy, the floor is yours. I'll support. I'll be on standby.
Yeah, hi, I'm going to share the notes on behalf of Kaltumi. We had a really engaged and kind of diverse group, so we got a good kind of spread of responses. For question 1, there's a lot of needs, but also a lot of ways that people are currently trying to work to advance women's participation in faith-based mediation. One reflection was from the academic space and in religious spheres across multiple countries. There is a lack of women in leadership positions. There are a lot of people in academia who are going through their years of religious studies and have no women in leadership positions to guide them and inspire. It is really important to be seeing women in leadership positions across religion, peace building, and interfaith and mediation initiatives. I really liked a quote from Kaltumi on this, which was that the importance of women can never be overemphasized. There's a lack of women in local faith-based initiatives, leading to a lack of visibility in communities. This was noted specifically from Somalia's context, a need for enhanced funding, protection from backlash, I appreciate a discussion of a greater shift in organizational, structural, and cultural norms that limit women's participation in mediation and dialogue. There are negative perceptions about women and about young people that really limit their capacities. This feeling of adult centrism and not being taken seriously as youth going into these spaces, even though then you can get youth in these spaces speaking and they hear the education and the conviction and the background, and you can really change their minds. So it's about getting youth into these spaces to help change those perceptions. For the second question, for pledges, an example from Kaltumi was that in Nigeria, there are specific funds going to support women faith-based mediators in their work in communities. They are pretty flexible funding, and they're not based on if that people have or haven't received funding before. Pledging flexible funding to support women and young women mediators is really valuable. Changing the daily speech and outer perceptions we have around women, implementing language and cultural transformation, pledging to support women in all of their diversity, advancing their intersectional identities so we can really benefit and raise the breadth of women's experience. Working on I'm almost done, I promise. Working on intergenerational interfaith engagement, and specifically partnering with people who are willing to do more than just tick the box, whether that's in faith organizations, UN bodies, being really intentional with that partnership. And just as a kind of positive closing note, just really pledging to make sure we are willing to take care of others. There's a lot of women in a lot of different situations that already know how to take care of each other and are leading alongside each other intellectual movements, but they are not being recognized. So we must really pledge to do so.
Beautiful points. And I love that last one as well, Lucy. Thank you. And now on to Despina or
Yes.
Tessa. Yes, Despina, over to you.
Thank you. So we also had a very amazing group, which really discussed many issues that were very pertinent. And my colleagues maybe can add if we get time. One of the things that we realized was that the issues around, the bombing in Palestine and the ceasefire issues, the bombs are still going on. So we need to know that as a fact that there is no ceasefire that is happening in that area. That we also need to act based on knowledge, resources, and how it is affecting our goals and objectives, especially related to GBV. Aman also shared how to tackle issues when third priorities emerge. This network that we have offers trainings for youth on religion and mediation in different contexts. Environment needs to be supportive of them and their work, and that was shared by Kat from Finland. We need to do some bit of research on this and cross-track approach, which has been very helpful and in peace processes. Women of faith bring a unique kind of moral authority and unique and community trust. Chaplaincy as a way of women to have leadership capacity in peace processes was seen as a very important thing in those spaces where it is. Integration of caregiving as a way to break the cycle of violence and promote peace, it was seen as key. Trauma-informed approach has a way to transform those that have been perpetrators of violence. And then on question 2, Aman talked about the Palestine commitment of young people and women rights organizations for women to be at the center of their work. Then there was a need to link women to national coalitions and partnerships and have them take on a leadership role. Investing in young women of faith mediators because they have faith in the youth and the next generation of leaders. And I shared something around, oh, I'm done. Sorry, I think it's my battery going down, but yeah, I wrote something here, a little bit, just a minute. We need to advocate for non-discriminative laws, which negatively discriminate women. But lastly, that women are doing all this kind of work, but they need some kind of visibility, especially women of faith are doing this kind of work. But spaces like this one can, the Peacemakers Network can help with that kind of visibility for such women who are doing such incredible work around mediation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Despina. And if anyone thinks of additional commitments they want to put in the chat, you can do so, or you can send it to the organizers after this as well. So don't feel like this is the last opportunity. Over to Monserrat for the next group.
I will share the takeaways. Thank you, Christina. So regarding the first question, how the organizations are supporting women of faith mediators, our colleagues talked about the importance of to give space and visibility to women's voices in peace mediation processes, which are very patriarchal and very male dominated. So just creating this space for women to be there is a very concrete way to support this process. We also talked about the link between when you work on harmful norms and including GBV, the link between that and the broader context of gender injustice and discrimination and context. So how the two, like the family dimension and the society and state dimension are very much linked, and it is important to work at all levels, and women are particularly well placed to do that. We talked about the importance of capacity building, so investing really in the skills of women and training them and building their capacity. We talked about the role of women participating in interethnic and interreligious dialogues to reduce conflict. So really at the community level, because they are in the communities and they are entrusted by the community, so they can be particularly effective there. So similar point that women of faith are connected in their communities and therefore they understand also the intersectionality. And finally, we talked about the role of religious leaders. that are particularly influential. In terms of the second question, the pledge, what the organization can do and commit to do in the future. So we talked again about making the role of women visible. So basically amplifying the voices, especially at the grassroots level. And this connects also with the following point, which is advocacy. So bringing these voices in advocacy spaces also at the global level. Another point that was made actually in both moments of the discussion was the importance to ensure the safety and the security of women who engage in this kind of processes, because in terms of not only physical safety, but their rights are violated or are continuously under threat. So it is more and more dangerous to engage in this space. And again, we stress the role of capacity building, investing in building the skills of women.
Thank you, Katarina. Great points, and I see a lot of resonances across different groups. I'd like to give the floor to Aisha for the last group readout.
All right, thank you. For the question number 1, we discussed on issues like leadership, public speaking, working to raise awareness on women's rights and gender justice, collaborate with them on priorities to their context, and engage them with faith leaders. Engage on contextual theology and humble interpretation of scriptures. Young women need to be given space in leadership positions. Older women want to occupy the space and not give each other space. And another thing is there is need to have a capacity strengthening to multi-faith mediators between communities. Need more on capacity strengthening and advocacy skills and leadership. Need more intergenerational mentorship opportunities. Need more funding opportunities. There is still a lot of patriarchy to tackle. Then another thing is psychosocial and mental health support capacity strengthening, and need more opportunities for education. We should be using artificial intelligence for supports, how we can incorporate history more into the conversation for why we are doing these things, the things we are doing. Focus on how to make the 1325 agenda more collaborative. Then UN Special Envoy don't know what is happening on the ground and are not aware of what women faith-based mediators are doing and their unique entry point. There is need to there is need to be channels to showcase the mapping of women faith mediators and what they are doing, so that the UN can see in the countries they have a role. Then the second question is about pledges. Advance the number of young women in peace processes in Nigeria and strengthen our partnership with other networks of mediators. Develop our capacity strengthening skills around advocacy. Another pledge is to cascade this information to grassroots levels so all women know that they can be peace mediators. Then working to address power structures for women and girls through our strategic partnership with faith institutions. We want girls to have influence through intergenerational learning. Another pledge is we'll take back information from this event to religions for peace to see what they can pledge. Can focus on more capacity strengthening programs. More of these trainings for capacity strengthening could be online. And lastly, we'll continue to make space and offer programs for young women and women to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha, and thank you all. This has been one of the more inspiring conversations I've been a part of, and I pledge to also take the recommendations in my work with the UN and to senior leadership. And I'm very pleased to be giving the floor for closing remarks to Deborah Boudreau, who is the Peace and Security Working Group co-chair. Over to you, Deborah.
Thank you, Christina, and distinguished colleagues and friends. As we draw this important gathering to close, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of our panelists and moderator, especially Christina, to bring everyone together, and breakout facilitators, note takers, and every participant who brought wisdom, courage, and profound experience to this discussion. Today, we have not only commemorated this 25th anniversary of Resolution 1325, but also reaffirmed our collective commitment to action. Today's dialogue, One Truth, has resonated clearly. Women and young women of faith are not simply participants in peace building. We are indispensable mediators, trust bridge, and resilient leaders. We have heard stories from conflict zones where women of faith, often at great personal risk, but we step forward to mediate, to heal, and to build trust where division seemed unbridgeable. Their presence increased the chance that peace agreements endure, and their voices bring both moral authority and community trust into fragile process. Let us continue this spirit with courage and accountability. Let us ensure that we have promised here does not remain within the wall of webinar, but is live out in policies, partnership, and the daily realities of communities longing for peace. On behalf of the Multi-Faith Advisory Council Peace and Security Working Group, I thank you all for your solidarity and commitment. Together, we can ensure that the next 25 years of the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda, Women, Children, Young, and Peace Security Agenda will be defined not only by exclusion, but by inclusion, not only by silence, but by amplifying the voices of women and young women of faith mediators. Thank you, and may we all go forward in peace with renewal, purpose, and hope. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the good job. In Buddha's saying, if you participate today's event, we are one of a historical documentation footprint. So let's continue. Join this initiative, commemorative into collaborative 1325. Thank you.